My name is Elaine. I've already been in the industry for 28 years, since the early 90s. I graduated in 1995, way before UX was even called UX. It was more GUI design back then. And okay, let me get started here. I have a lot of students who are like you guys. I've had students interview students like you guys. I have a different apprentices and they have interviewed people like you guys. We've heard from many people that have taken boot camps, they didn't get a job, even fresh grads, right? Even from universities. People taking like 4 years university, not getting jobs, right? So I have 10 insights for you and let me know if you agree with this. In fact, I run IXDA Vancouver for 3 years now and IXDA Hong Kong for 15 years. So we know it's actually a global issue. It's not just Vancouver or Canada. In fact, we wanted to do a survey to see how many people got jobs after boot camps, like the reality versus what people are selling you. So these are the top 10 insights after our teams did user research, understanding people like you guys. So what we heard is this: people feel unready to land a UX job. They find it hard to land a UX internship. They find it challenging to get a UX job interview even. Yeah, they feel they don't have enough real world experience. UX portfolio not standing out from the crowd. Job descriptions are confusing and inconsistent. There's no feedback from hires or recruiters. Not sure how to find senior designer mentors for feedback. Feel burnt out from the intensive courses or boot camps, and unsure how they should network effectively. How many of you feel the same way? Okay. So did you know that, this is like the US market. I think Canada will be even more acute. In the UX market, I think more than 90% of the people are mid-level to junior designers. Between 1 to 4 years is like almost 70%. You guys maybe, if you haven't even entered the market, then you may be, in this early stage here, right? Mid-career people are 5 to 9 years of experience. And I've noticed that a lot of the jobs are looking for 3 to 5 years. Is that right? Everybody's looking for 3 to 5 years, the employers, right? So the last 10% of the people who are hiring, people who have 10 to 20 years of experience, like I'm the 1.6% because I have like 28 years experience in this industry, right? So I know what's going on because we've been because I organize IXDA Vancouver. We hear from hirers, we hear from like every single time we have an offline event, it's a lot of people looking for jobs now. So I'm like, what's going on here? Right? It didn't used to be this way. Okay, so who am I? Like I said, my name is Elaine, and I've worked in the US for 12 years in the 90s. So this was like the first dot-com boom and bust in New York, Silicon Valley, San Francisco. I went back to Asia for 20 years. And I actually just came back here to North America actually by accident because I came here 3 years ago to visit my folks. And, 1 week later, COVID exploded. And then I decided to stay here in Vancouver. This is my one slide visual background. So I'm quite familiar with Hong Kong, China market and North American market. Okay. My company in Hong Kong, we helped a lot of Western tech companies like Google, Airbnb, Dropbox, Intel, Siemens, Motorola in Asia, right, for the past 20 years. And now my two companies here, we help more tech startups. That is also why I'm also doing some training for career changers. After the training, we'll put the qualified people to work with the tech startups that we're involved in. I've given like talks worldwide, about UX design thinking and previously about Hong Kong, China market, done tons of training all over. I also taught in schools part-time when I was back in Asia. I had a foot in education because when I went back to Asia, nobody knew what the hell UX was. So I had to train my own people. Yeah. And I think right now the stage of the industry is there's a lot of people wanting to get into the industry, but it seems like there's a mismatch between what employers want and what the educational market is offering. One of the things about looking for a job is you need to get out of your bedroom Tons of people tell me they send out 50 or to 100 resumes, but the way they're doing it is they're just sitting in their homes, right? Especially nowadays, I know some of you might be using ChatGPT to for resumes and your letter to the employer, and they don't know if you wrote it, right? They want to know the real you, the real person. So it's actually really important that you come out to meet and network with senior people. Okay, so these are some of my students from the past. Tons of career changers. Roy, he was at Microsoft. He was a career changer he studied engineering. Tintin, she actually moved on from Anbank. She's now at Binance in Hong Kong, but she had a geography background. And also, you know, Karen, she worked at Price Waterhouse Cooper. She was from marketing. So I had students from architecture, finance, graphic design, industrial design, flight attendant. Last year we had a flight attendant, like she got laid off, because of, the pandemic, right? And now she's switched into UX and she's now in Toronto. Okay, so 5 things. What are the 5 things? Number 1, UX is actually not one role. Any of you know about that? Depends on what companies. Large companies, UX has many specialization, but small companies, like it's one single role. Here are some specializations in large companies. Like, for example, some of my clients, like Google, my client is just a user researcher, right? He doesn't do design. He doesn't do interaction design. He doesn't do visual design. He's just user research. He probably does front end exploratory research and also do user testing, but he doesn't do design. Okay. However, although that's true, you also need to know that in many markets, especially Canada, 98% of businesses are small, medium companies, meaning they will not have this, distinction. Because small companies don't have a huge budget. They probably want to hire one person to do everything. Especially tech startups, they might want that one designer to not only be UX, be user researcher, create the business card, the website, the digital marketing, the t-shirt, right? They want you to be everything, right? Yeah. So is it better to learn end to end? I would say usually when a person starts off, you're probably good in one thing or another. And as you progress in your career, you would be learning the whole stack. So we call people full stack designers, right? Yeah, and even coding, right? Like front end programming. Our industry has a lot of confusing terminologies because there's no certification to say, like a lawyer. Like you can't call a solicitor like a barrister. You can't just change names, right? But in our industry, because there's no real certification as in legal certification, companies can call themselves, like, call the titles anything, and you can also call yourself anything, right? So it's important when you go to interview with people that you really dig deep into what they mean when they say UX, when they say UI, and when they say product designer. Okay, it's not like if they say it's that role, it's that role. It could be like some employers, they might not know very much about UX, and what they really want is a graphic designer or a web designer, and then they label it as UX. Okay, and I'll tell you like what the difference is afterwards. Okay, in our profession, people who are experienced, they can actually do all the things on the left side. Sometimes not everything, but at least understand UX as a lot more than people who are just coming into the industry or people not familiar with UX. A lot of people think UX is just UI, it's just like the pretty interface or visual design, especially when you talk to tech startups, right? Some of them think, oh, we have the programmers program everything and just slap a nice interface on it, right? So that's, for some businesses that works, but in the real profession, it's not like it's a lot more than that. And because like for, let's say, websites or mobile apps, like you only see the surface, right? They only see the screen. So they don't know how much stuff has been going on at the back before we get to that, right? there would be doing user research, strategy, business strategy with the business folks, marketing folks to establish what's the direction, who are we targeting, what's the market size, and then coming up with personas, right? User journeys, interaction design flows. And then the very last step is the interface. But a lot of people don't see that process, right? They only judge the very end interface. Okay, so here is something that I make a distinction about. I think a lot of boot camps probably don't even do that. You're either on the left side or on the right side. People with design backgrounds, meaning people have been trained in industries like if you graduated from graphic design, industrial design, interior design, architecture, multimedia, you probably have visual skills. So when I say visual skills is you can actually execute the design. So let's say a company asks you to design an app for a food delivery app, you can actually take it to the end. So you can cook the dish, so to speak. Now, if you're from non-design background, you probably still have some skills that are relevant to UX industry, but you might be from marketing, psychology, I saw biology, engineering, finance, right? You just need to know your previous skills, which are people skills, like soft skills or logical skills. They're relevant to part of UX, but the missing part is you probably can't take like your strategy and research into actual design execution, or it's not good enough, right? The visuals is not good enough. So that's a really important distinction to make, because you just need to know that a lot of employers, especially small companies, they want you to be able to execute the design. Do you guys get it? So I found a really good analogy. I think cooking is a very good analogy for our industry. Let's say everybody can cook, right? You know, even just make a toast or make some noodles, right? But not everybody can be a chef. You can cook at home, you can cook for your friends, you can cook for your parents, but to be employed in a restaurant is a different level. And how many restaurants would hire somebody who can only talk about cooking or research about cooking or design the dishes, but not actually cook? Do you guys get that? Okay, in large restaurants or hotels, there could be specialization, right? There could be, let's say Marriott Hotel, they might have a chef who specializes in desserts, right? In Asian food, in Western food. And there's some cooks or there's some people who are specialized in food design, but not cooking it, right? So in large companies, it's possible that you don't cook, but you're also involved. So here's the issue, I think. Many of you, when you're just starting off, like it's most likely you will be more valuable to a smaller company. Like it's kind of not realistic to expect to land a good job at Google or Facebook on day one. But at a smaller company, they don't want people to just do research because, you know, they want you to be able to cook the dish, right? To take the research and insights all the way to the end, right? You either have to find a job where they already have a visual designer to work with you if you don't have the design skills, or if you want to, you need to hone in on your visual skills or execution, design execution skills to a professional level, okay? I think here is where a lot of people get stuck. People without the visual background, but want to get into UX and then find that there are not many research roles, right, for small companies. Let me just show you what I mean by, you know, user research, because I've also been involved in I've talked at BrainStation before, I've taught at General Assembly Hong Kong before. I know what the curriculum is. It's usually very short, and then they squeeze like 3 to 5 projects within like 3 months, right? The problem is you don't have enough time to do user research. You only have time to execute, you know, wireframes, you know, like personas, user journey, like, and the personas are not done correctly because in a very short time, I know a lot of students just interview their classmates or friends, which are not really the right users sometimes. So here's how we do it professionally. Like for this particular project we were trying to work on, we talked to 20 people, and these 20 people are not our friends. We recruited them on our user recruitment websites. We paid them to talk to them. Okay. But of course, this is more professionally done. And then, of course, you'll have interaction design, and this role is very logical minded. I actually think there are at least 3 types of roles in UX. For user research, you need to be a very people person, right? If you're an introvert, you might not be suitable for this. You need to be able to recruit strangers, talk to them, understand them, like empathize with them. So it's a very people skill. So if you are, if your past job is in marketing, hospitality, like, communication, English translation, you might be suitable for this part of UX. Okay. People who are from, let's say, programming, tech, engineering, they might be suitable for the more logical part of UX, which is interaction design. And then, visual design, right? Like I can say visual design takes time to train. It's not a 3 months deal. People went to school for this for 4 years. Okay. People go to school for like visual or graphic design for 4 years. So it's not a skill that can be trained very quickly, I would say. And part of it is also you need to have some talent or aesthetic sense as well. And you need to see a lot of good work. Yeah. I actually asked my students to look at award designs to compare their work to, not their classmates at boot camps. Because imagine if you're going to be a chef and you want to land a Michelin like chef role, you need to know what the food quality is like at hotels, right? Not at Tim Hortons, right? For those of you in Canada, or Starbucks, right? It's a different level of quality. Okay, number 2. I personally think UX without user research is not UX. You know why? Well, the word user research has user in it, right? So if you don't talk to the user, where's the user in the experience? It's web design. It's graphic design. It's not user experience because it's based on your own assumptions only. Part of the UX process or the user-centered process is you need to involve real users in your process. Test out your assumptions. You need to validate it. And users are not your friends. Users, you need to find the right users to get the right feedback also. We're not the user. Sometimes your boss is not the user. Your client is not the user. So you need to find a way to get to the real users to talk to them. If you're doing design work, but there's no user involved, like how can you call it user experience? For example, okay, so I'm just going to show you like how we talked to some users, we recruited online, and this is about a 360 space, right? So we're getting her feedback on the product. This is before COVID. Actually, before COVID, user research is not just Zoom interviews. We actually go to where the product is used. If it's in the hospital, we went to the hospital. This was in China, in actually Wuhan, but it was 10 years ago, not now. Yeah, we actually went to the hospitals to understand how doctors work, how nurses work, how patients are there, because we're helping a client design this medical device. And they were testing the product. Yeah, we had nurses test the product. The client flew over to China like 3 times, brought over the prototype. It went through like security and, on the plane and all that. This is called shadowing. We actually follow users around, sometimes for an hour or 2 or half a day. This was trying to understand baby products. Like this is, in this case, stroller. It's actually not just understanding the product, it's understanding the people. It's part of ethnography. So when the client was asking us to, do this project, the focus that they originally thought was the baby stroller, which is like their major product. But what we found out was, guess what? What is the main concern for parents in China when they take their kids out? They are very concerned about kidnapping. So every time they go out, they need two adults accompanying like the baby, because they tell us like if they look away for 1 second, the baby could be gone or kidnapped. Okay. We found, hey, this is actually the number one pain point. So actually the need for security for kids is actually way bigger than, baby cards. We also do what we call intercept interviews. Intercept interviews is invented from the West. It's more like you go on the streets and then you talk to random strangers. This methodology doesn't really work in China or Asia because people will freak out and call the police. But we adapted the methodology and said, hey, maybe we can interview people within the school environment, right? Yeah, guerrilla interviews. Okay, traditionally in the West, there are things called focus groups. We also adapted it for Asia because I don't think focus group actually works in Asia, because focus group requires you to put into a room like 8, 12 people, and they're complete strangers. In China, like, or even in some other Asian countries, I think people are uncomfortable talking to people that they don't really know. Like there might be different hierarchies, like power hierarchies, like you don't want to offend other people, so they keep quiet in a room with strangers. I just wanted to show you, like, user research traditionally, it's not just online interviews. There are many methodologies, but it's all about understanding people. It's all about understanding the users, and it's used in different ways at different times of the process. We also do user testing. These are some tools that we've used in the past where you can see the phone screen as well as the user face, and then we'll have them test out what like the steps on the screen, right? And we'll record everything as well. This is one thing that we kind of invented along the way. So there was a client in South China, in Hong Kong, actually. He was manufacturing coffee cups for US market. But during 2008, like the market was not doing very well. So he wanted to shift his focus to designing for China market. His business is actually in plastic, so he can make anything in plastic. What we did, he wanted to know, so do people in China drink coffee? Like, those coffee mugs you put in the car, while you're driving, there's a coffee mug you can just slide it in next to your driving wheel. And we found out that, in China, like what we did was we just sent a bunch of people to take tons of photos on what people drink, right? And we came back with these photos. So you can see in China, people actually drank chrysanthemum tea, goji berries, red dates, salty lemon. So different things, right? When you understand what people drink, it tells you what the festival should be like, because there are different ways to make tea, different ways to make different drinks at different temperature, or and leakage and stuff like that, right? I don't know why the dragon fruit is in a glass though, which is odd. Anyway, in the past, before we even had digital post-it boards like Mural, we actually printed everything out and stuck it on the wall and do the visual analysis together and see if we can find patterns of how people use the space or use products. And now, it's moved on to Mural, right? This is a project we did for a plant-based meat. Yeah, it was a report for them, and we try to understand if plant-based meat will work in the China market. And on the left side, you'll see we're mapping out people's behavior in terms of, so if there's more green, they eat more vegetables, more red, they eat more red meat. If it's more yellow, they eat more carbohydrates. We're trying to map out the pattern. I was just wanting to show you, like, user research is way more than Zoom interviews. And that's how we get to understand people on the ground. I think after the pandemic, a lot of people can kind of have retreated to like texting and Zooming, and sort of kind of miss the humanness of what we do in our industry. And maybe later on we can get back to that, but I just feel people are kind of shy, don't want to interact with strangers, don't want to communicate as much as before. Okay, number 3. UX need visual skills to execute design. which is a point that I talked about previously. And you just need to know that, especially with small companies, that's what they want. So you either need to pick up that skill or be very good in user research and focus on going to a bigger company, but you probably need to get more education, either, maybe in HCI or in psychology, right? If you want to get to a big company. Here's how the different skill sets kind of overlap. Some of you might be coming from like front end development, like Dexter. He has front end development background, and that's how he got into UX, because he's got involved more and more how the interface works, right? Some people are coming from like language background, marketing, communication, and those people are really attracted to doing the research part of UX. But if you just do the research and you can't take it to the end, working with the developers, then you have to work in a bigger company too. So some people have the design background, like, what I said, graphic, product, interior, architecture. They have the visual execution skills. They're more like the yellow piece at the bottom, right? And if you can do everything, then you're a full stack designer, okay? But you just need to know like where you are in the process. For example, it's not just the interface. This is an example of the journey map that we were helping one of our clients. They built a e-commerce website that sells eyewear. They spent $1 million and in 1 year's time, there was 0 customers going onto their website. So they did not understand why, right? They're like, we spent so much money and built the website. Why aren't people using it? And why aren't people buying eyewear online? So we wanted to understand like why people buy where, and we mapped out the user journey. So the user journey is about the user, it's not about the product, okay? We mapped out like people buying prescription glasses, the motivation of why they buy it, where they search it. They'll do their eye check, they'll research what kind of eyewear to buy, they'll shortlist the type of glasses, they'll compare, they'll purchase, and rinse and repeat, right? This is all the steps the users make in their decision. It's only by really, unraveling why people do what they do, why, what, and when, that you know how to design your product later. Okay, here is a graphic that I put together that I think, okay, it looks a little complicated here, but I can explain to you step by step. This will explain to you why you are not finding a job. Okay, let me start. If you look on the left side, these are usually the skills that people acquire as they mature in the UX industry. When you first start off, you probably are just learning UX 101. Same as if you learn to be a cook. Basically, you're learning, you can fry things, you can steam things, you can, do like all the different ways of cooking, right? If you took a boot camp, that's basically what you learn. The 101s of UX is actually the very basic stuff. But in order to actually land a job, I think visual skills is quite important as a junior person, because companies don't want to hire a designer who cannot design, especially if you position yourself as a designer, right? Like, are you going to hire a cook who can't cook? Yeah, you better be able to cook, right? Or cook it to a level that is good enough to eat at a restaurant, right? If it's not good enough for a restaurant, you can still cook, but you cook for yourself and you cook for your families, who's not going to need to pay you, right? And then as you advance in your career, you learn the soft skills, you learn how to communicate with each other, you learn how to convince stakeholders, you learn about business, you learn how to facilitate, right? These are kind of like the progression of, from a junior to senior person. And here, this line is 4 years of university. Some people paid 4 years of tuition to become a graphic designer or a product industrial designer. Okay. Now, this side, did you know there are many different types of companies you can choose to go to work in UX? What are some of them? The answer is on the screen, but you can work with tech startups. You can work with consultancies. My company is a consultancy, right? You can work for mid-sized corporations, right? Well, nonprofit, yeah, but then you don't get paid, which is not a bad thing. Early on in your career, you probably want to volunteer a lot to get a lot of experience. Mid-sized corporations and FANGs. That's like the area that everybody wants to go to, but usually it's not very realistic for your first job, unless they have an internship program and you can get in, right? Mid-sized corporations are large, like pretty large companies that you kind of never heard of their name, but they might be some B2B companies or some, I don't know, SaaS or credit union companies, right? They do exist and they do hire, but you just don't hear about their name on media every single day. As you're starting off as a boot camper, either as a junior designer graduating from design school or a career changer, some of these companies kind of overhired during the pandemic, and they probably didn't do a good estimate of what they need or not, right? These are the 4 types of organizations you can go to. And usually, I think when you're just starting off, it's the consultancy or the tech startups who are more willing to work with junior people. There are also mid-sized corporations who will accept career changers who have already maybe have all the soft skills. So for example, I know people who have been in marketing or advertising for 10, 15 years, and then they switch into UX, then they might be more easily, they can more easily go to these mid-sized corporations to start as a designer, right? Because they already have the soft skills and the logical skills. Even though they don't have the visual skills, they can maybe hire a visual person to work with them. You know how to read this now, right? Okay, so when you first start up, you're like a UX boot camera 3 months. The reality is, if you look on the left, the red text is, I've talked to many employers. They tell me I need 12 to 18 months to ramp up boot cameras for me to feel they can help me, okay? So that's what they tell us. That's why, like, think about it. Why is everybody looking for 3 to 5 years? All the jobs are 3 to 5 years. Unfortunately, all the YouTubers are telling you that you can get a UX job with 0 experience and 0 education, and you can get 6-figure. Okay. Unfortunately, people are telling you that, and unfortunately, the boot cameras are telling you that also. But think about it, like, if you're a chef, if you want to be a chef, you took a 3-month cooking class. What does it take you to do to go to work for Gordon Ramsay? You know Gordon Ramsay is, right? Or Jamie Oliver. These star chefs, like what will it take for you to get there? Cooking experience, right? You need to cook all the time. You need to cook, for friends, for families, for, practice. Go to a small restaurant, like a diner, to first practice cooking. After that, go to a bigger restaurant. After that, go to a hotel. After that, and maybe beg Gordon Ramsay to let you peel potatoes in his kitchen, right? That's how I think what's missing in the market is right now it's a lot of videos. You can't learn cooking just watching videos. You need to do design, right? Can you learn how to bike watching a video only? Can you? Yeah, so knowing and doing is 2 different things. So when you do, plus a lot of boot camps have you work on the project yourself. In the real world, you don't just cook alone. You have to work with other chefs. You have to work with tech people. I mean, in UX, you have to work with tech people, marketing people, sales people, business people. You have to convince them to create your design. You have to back up your design decisions, right? The CEO asks you, why did you design this way? And you're like, because I like it. That's not gonna fly, right? Yep. See, the problem with design jams is also, it's like usually 1-2 days, 24 hours. You know how long it takes for us to do real user research for larger companies, 3 months, 2 to 3 months. A lot of the jams are kind of like suppressing. It's like if it takes you like, maybe 3 hours to cook something that is professional, the boot camps are teaching you that it's only going to take 10 minutes, right? So it's not going to come out the same. All right, let me finish this diagram. So usually, even after you graduate from university, good schools usually have internship programs weaved into the curriculum, right? Let's say if you go through 4 years of education, every summer, you work with a employer. By the time you graduate, you have like 3 to 4 experiences. Then actually employers know about you, they like you as a person, then it's very likely they're going to hire you. If not, if the school doesn't do that, then you'll have to like internship or volunteer to get hands-on cooking experience, like real design experience, right? And here is where you get to collaborate with other people and you develop your soft skills. I personally find people who have worked in the hospitality industry, whether you have been waitressing, sales, hospitality, you already have those skills. You already have empathy with the customer, okay? But some people who are very introverted might not have that skill, which is actually critical when you communicate in a team situation. All right, so communication skills. The larger you get into larger companies, the more people skills you need, because there will be politics, right? There'll be departmental politics, and you have to navigate all that stuff. You have to be able to convince everybody to be on your side. Now, FANGs. Yeah, so FANGs are where you get all these specialization. You get user researcher, you get interaction designer, you get visual designer. It could be very distinct. But small company, very unlikely a tech startup would have all these different roles until they have grown to the size of Airbnb or Uber, where they have a large department, then they will have specializations, right? So tech startup also have different phases, right? There's seed stage, there's series A, B, C, like funded. Somebody could also call themselves a tech startup if they just like 2 founders graduated and start a company and they were just students 2 months ago, could also be a tech startup. So you need to be careful when you find a job, like you need to find out like what they really are. Okay. All right. Number 4. Don't look for a job just sending out resumes. How many of you sit at home, send out 50 to 100 resumes, all writing the same content, just changing the name? How many of you do that? Guess why that doesn't work? Let's say if you're dating like 15 guys. Every guy you talk to, you talk about the same thing. Do you think guys will be interested in you? Like, yeah, you have to tell the employer why you like them and why you match and why, they should hire you, right? There needs to be a cultural fit, and you need to be very excited about that particular company. If somebody interviews with me and I ask them, what do you know about my company? And they say, I don't know. Then I'm like, well, you don't even know what you're applying for. Have you done research? Have you looked at my website? Do you know my business? Why do you want to work for me? Why do you want to work for me versus another company? I want to know that. I don't want somebody to be dating 100 companies and can't tell me why they want to work with us, right? Assuming you got an interview. Let me share you. Okay. Here's one truism. People buy from people they trust. Do you agree? How do you build trust? Yeah, okay. We want to be trusted, or we want to hire people we trust, right? How do you build trust? Now, here's the few areas. You want to be competent, right? As a designer first. You want to communicate you're reliable. You want to be consistent. Well, consistent and reliable is hand in hand. You want to be sincere. You want to have integrity. You want to have a commitment. Okay, how do you demonstrate that to employers? Yeah, social proof. How do you demonstrate that? I think nowadays companies don't know if you wrote the cover letter or did ChatGPT write it. They can't rely on that. stories you can tell once you actually meet them in an interview, but I can't emphasize enough, networking is very important. But networking is not just showing up at an event. Okay, some people, this is what they do. They network, they go to an event, sit there, listen to the talk. Afterwards, they leave. Is that networking? Even if you talk to people at the networking, afterwards, like I did a talk at BrainStation like 2 weeks ago. People do follow up with me afterwards. They write me, oh, hello, I really like your talk, blah, blah. And I'm looking for a job and great meeting you. Full stop. I was like, well, what do you expect me to reply? Right? They didn't ask me anything. They didn't ask me to come out. They didn't ask me a question. So it's great that they wrote me a nice note, but I don't know what the ask is, right? Plus, many people don't follow up. They write one time and then the employer don't reply, and then they don't write again. I tell you, a lot of employers are busy. They have family, they have kids, they have a team, they might have not saw your email. It might not even be they don't want to reply you, they didn't see it. They got busy, they're like, oh, this is not important right now because I have tons of fires to put out. And they forgot about it, right? It might not be your fault. I think a lot of people assume too early that, oh, they didn't write me, I'm so hurt, like they must not want me. I tell you a story. Many years ago, we were referred by a friend to talk to PayPal. Okay, I was talking to this PayPal person as a potential customer, right? Talking, and suddenly that person did not reply. I didn't know what was going on. I thought, maybe they don't want us, or they don't want a service. Months later, this person's boss wrote me, the PayPal person's boss wrote me, and guess what happened? The lady who I was talking to apparently had cancer. And she went to the hospital and never come back. No, she probably didn't die, but she probably had to go through surgery or whatever, right? And then the whole time I was thinking, oh, we're not good enough, like they didn't come back to me, right? It had nothing to do with me. You just never know. Just keep following up, right? But follow up, but not pestering people. You need other people to have a good reason why they should, talk to you. Okay, what I advocate is you guys are learning user-centered design, right? Then the hire is your user. Think about what they want. If you volunteer, think about what will be of value to them. I think, this is a world of give and take. Sometimes if you give first, then it will come back. Okay. Like sometimes when we organize events, there are some people that I see them come all the time. I recognize them, right? And in the past in Hong Kong, when I also organized the IXD, I've also noticed that, there are senior people in the community. And sometimes when they need help, like let's say their company says, oh, hey, Eric, I'm looking for like the boss says, I want to hire somebody. Where do they look first? They ask around their community, right? And then the people who stand out, who's always there, who is responsive, right? Like people sometimes have the wrong concept of volunteering. People think volunteering is, oh, well, I'm not paid, I don't have to be there, or I can just like hop out last minute. But guess what? Everybody's watching. People remember you. People remember if you drop the ball, and there goes your opportunity. Okay. But the people who are always reliable and, they're visible, we know. In fact, in our industry, senior designers talk about who not to hire. Did you guys know that? There are people in the industry that were like, oh my God, that person, oh my God. Like, we're like, don't touch that person. She's toxic. We tell friends, right? Yeah. Your reputation, your personal brand matters a lot. If you want to be in any industry, like even in Hollywood, right? Some people, they are really successful because their reputation, their professionalism precedes themselves. They're they're always, responsible and, take care of other people, they're responsive. All right, when I talk to senior designers, this is what they tell us. One person told me I need 12 to 18 months to train up junior people, and we don't have the resources and bandwidth to do this. One person said people change jobs too quickly. We want to hire people who stays with us. First thing, it's now the slash economy, right? Like everybody has multiple things going on. But if you give the feeling to the employer that, well, you're just a stepping stone, like I just won the first job and, in 3 months I'm going to leave. Nobody wants that, right? Because it takes time for the company to train you up. And I think this is one of the reasons why senior people are not hiring junior people as much nowadays, is because they have been burnt before. They have been burnt that people change jobs too quickly, right? Also, if you're in Canada, one thing that I notice is, I think in Canada, because it's very pro employees and there are, employees regulations and all that, I think companies are very careful about hiring. They want to hire somebody who's going to stay with them. They don't want to hire and fire. They take time to date you. They take time to interview you. In fact, 3 of my students, before they got hired, the employers called me and some emailed me and asked me 15 questions about that person. Yeah. It's not only your work, it's about your personality, your character. If people feel you are dependable, you're responsible, you're hardworking, you learn fast, right? It's all those things. If you have a senior person vouching for you, you'll get a job much easier. One of my students, I trained him for 5 months. He switched from an architect to a UX designer now. He was very good. He actually landed his first job without an interview or a portfolio done because I vouched for him. I introduced him to one of my clients. He's working as a UX designer in that tech startup, AI tech startup now. Okay. But it was because of his personal character also. He waited for my course for 3 times. And, whenever I talk to him, he's always on time, responsible, responsive. He has good work, but I think as a junior designer, on top of that, your personal character is much more important, because employers know that you always have to train, right? And they want to train people who are appreciative and not just come in to get what they want and then leave in 3 months, because it's an investment of time for senior designers. Okay, number 3, we need people with soft skills, as it's hard to manage teams remotely. Because of the pandemic, now, a lot of companies, especially larger ones, they can't force people to go to the office, right? So when that is the case, companies have to allow people to work remotely. And when you work remotely, you do want to hire people who are very responsive and responsible, because people can disappear and there's nowhere you can find them. Like what do? Go to their home and knock on their door? It's not going to work, right? So employers and hires, they want people who are good at soft skills, good at communicating, because working remotely is harder than working face to face when you're in an office and you can just grab that person next to you, right? These are the 3 things that a lot of employers tell us. Go to meet warm bodies, okay? Is what I recommend for you guys. That's how real relationships are built. Relationships are not built via texting, okay, or Zoom calls. You don't have that physical connection as much. Okay, I advocate give before you get. Just because you are early in your career, you have to show that you can provide value before other people will give you the opportunity. What are some of the ways to maintain relationships? Be genuine, right? For example, you need to find commonality with senior designers that you jive with. Go on ADP list, find people who have similar backgrounds, who are more senior to you. For example, if they are in, so some of you are in biology, find somebody who was a biology or medical background person and who entered the UX field. Ask them how they did it and keep in touch. Like, it's like a friendship. If you approach a person, just once, is that a friend? It's using other people. You go and get what you want and you get out. That's using people. People don't like that. You stay in touch and, keep following up, send them Christmas message, send them New Year's message, stay interested. Okay, number 5, we're almost out of time. You need real world experience to land a UX job. How many of you heard that? Which is kind of odd, right? Why? Like, if you don't have experience, how do you get real world experience? How do you do that? Volunteer. Yeah. Well, volunteer to cook for a small restaurant, right? Or volunteer to cook for a nonprofit organization. I just want you guys, like, just now that diagram I showed you is just to show you the realistic picture of the industry. If you want to be a master chef, you need, after taking a cooking class, which is the boot camp, you need to practice. You need to practice in areas, and also employers will know how passionate you are about getting to the industry. Many people only want to get into UX industry because they think they'll get a 6-figure job, but not why they want to get into the industry. Employers only want to hire people who are passionate about the field. And there are lots of things that will demonstrate if you're passionate. If you're writing a blog about UX, if you're being a YouTuber about UX, if you're volunteering to lead a hackathon for UX, if you're volunteering to organize events for UX, that's how you show you're passionate. But if you do nothing in UX and you expect a 6-figure job, that's not going to come. You need to also ask yourself, are you really interested in UX? Or is it because everybody is going to UX, that's why you want to go to UX, right? Like any profession, getting into a profession is not, I think the boot camps make it sound way too easy. And you need to know, so a lot of the boot camps, they are financially motivated, okay? They charge you, what, $13,000 per person? How many students they take in per cohort? 20, 40? Times how many years per year? How many times? How much money do you think they make? Which is different from a school. Like in the schools, professors, sometimes they are tenured, right? Their purpose is to teach. Yeah, hundreds, thousands, right? So actually, I talked to Iterate UX, one of the founders, Leticia. We as senior designers might think about doing something about this. We might need to be vocal about the boot camps because I think it's screwing a lot of people up. Anyway, the last point. Okay, MasterChef, right? go take a look at the MasterChef, like, and take a look at how, so any industry is the same, right? If you want to be a cook, the same. If you want to be a yoga teacher, same thing, right? You learn a class, you get a certificate, but you actually need to practice until you get to a certain level before you can master it. And 10,000 hours is probably usually what it takes to master something. 10,000 hours is 2 years. So guess why companies are hiring people 3 to 5 years of experience? Because they also notice that there are tons of people who just have three months boot camp, right? Actually, it was funny. There was an employer I was talking to, like she was looking for a user researcher for months, right? For 3 to 6 months. And then I checked in with her. She said, well, we can't find a person. And I said, so what did you do? She said, we raised their standards. She was like, oh, we've been getting a lot of bootcamp portfolios. Is not what we want. So they raised the standard even higher. So I was like, you can't find, then you either have to train these people. You can't find them, right off the bat. But senior designers, because of the pandemic, because of the digital transformation, there's a lot of need. Senior people also don't have the time. Like if they want to train you, they actually need to put a dedicated person to train you. And if they train you, they're investing in you, right? They're out of pocket training you. But the problem with the boot camps is they have entirely screwed up the expectations. The boot camps have programmed you guys to think after 3 months you can get 6-figure salary, while the employers is like, you aren't even trained well. Like, why am I paying you that much for work that you can't really help me do? Okay. All right, so how do we do this? My own company, my main business is actually not training. My main business is helping. We used to help large companies in Asia. Now my other company here, we help tech startups. And here's why we do training. We train people up, and the right people, not everyone, the right people will match them with the right tech startups to work on those projects, to validate customer needs, which is user research, to create the MVP, minimal viable product. So we want to create a win-win-win situation. Yeah, because many tech startups, they have the CEO, they have the CTO, they don't have a senior designer. A lot of times they hire a junior person and it doesn't work out because the junior person does not have a senior person to learn from. And then after 3 months, the junior person would be like, well, I'm not really learning UX. I don't know if what I'm doing is right. I'm asked to do logos and t-shirts. So I'm going to leave, right? This is the format that I'm doing this. Okay, last year this was our cohort. We had 6 students and we did an NFT project. Right now, so this is our training. A lot of our students are from boot camps. The step 1 is we kind of shift their mindset about looking for a job to not expect to get 6-figure in 3 months. Okay, it was a mindset shift. The second one is a UX portfolio building course. We are doing a UX and AI bootcamp. I just call it bootcamp because it's not just a lecture. It's actually doing the project with a team, right? And then the good students, I actually will take them on as apprentices for our client projects. And the really good ones, I'll actually recommend it to our clients or help them bridge to a job. I personally think that this is our way. And I think what you need to do is you need to align your past strengths to the UX roles that you're looking for. So if you don't have a visual background and you can't execute design, it doesn't help to call yourself a UX designer, okay? It's setting up the wrong expectations. We'll teach how people can make their portfolio stand out from the crowd, which is why we have this UX and AI program right now. I believe coming up, AI would be disrupting every single industry, including UX. Right? I teach people how to be hire center, which I mentioned. You need to show creativity in your work. It's not just about checking the check boxes of I did persona, I did user journey. You need to show creativity in our industry. You need to involve users to validate your design. And if you get a senior designer to endorse your skills, you have a much better chance of landing a job.